like to start with the eyes. This is the 4B, so I'm going to slowly build up the values. So you see below the eye is a highlight, then under it you see a midtone, and then a shadow. On a face, because the face is round, you need smooth transitions. So that's why I like to start light and then slowly build up the values and then smoothen the layer each time. That's how I create smooth transitions, and that's how I like to do that. So I use the graphite that's on the tissue and then smudge over those areas where I didn't go over. With charcoal, you can get it dark right away, just with one layer. The great thing about charcoal is I'm using really light pressure and I'm getting it really dark right away. So now you see, once you have that black of the iris, the rest of the eye is way too light, even though we started with a light layer. I'm going to use the 6B. Darken the upper lash line. So now that you have the dark value of the iris, you can see now that the rest, how dark you can make the rest of the eye. You have something to compare. So sometimes you might feel like finishing the eye completely because it doesn't look finished right now. So you want to add the lashes, but I would wait until you have the skin. So you have the right value of the skin first. And then you can also see that the eyeball white is also too white, still too white. Comparing it to the dark iris. And sometimes I'm not sure yet if it's the correct value. That's when I move on to the nose and the rest of the face. So that's another reason I start light, because it's best to have it too light that you need to darken a bit than the other way around. I might need to add a layer later, but in the beginning I'm not really sure yet if this is too dark or correct. Because in the reference photo there is the black background and I have the white background of my paper. See, the light is coming from the front, but a bit more to the right. So you see the eyeball white on this side is brighter than on this side of the eye. And sometimes when I don't finish the eyes, but then I think, okay, I need to work on something else, and because then you focus on the eyes too much, and then you start to lose your focus, or you don't really see what you can add or change, and then it's best to focus on something else and then go back. See that I want to darken some more, like you see the shadow here on the nose on the left side, and that can help you when you're adding values, knowing where the light is coming from which side. So whenever you shade, try to stop with really light pressure so that you don't get any hard edges anywhere. It's really important because faces are round, and if you get any hard edges, it will look like an outline, because an edge means that it stops there. So I'm going to take a clean part just to be sure when I smudge over the lighter area here and here under the eye. Now sometimes it gets a bit darker than you want, then you can carefully use the kneaded eraser, dab to pick up some of the graphite. Keep in mind that the graphite, there is graphite on the stump, so I don't go over any lighter areas like the highlights. Only over the edges to get a smoother transition. With the 8B, I'm going to work on, it's a bit darker here, the values around the eye just a bit more. So this is the 8B that I'm just using to darken some extra graphite that's on the stump and here. So I'm going to blend the edges so that you have smooth transition, because that highlight, it's not a circle. You don't want to edge around that highlight. Otherwise, it will look like a spot on his forehead. Smoothen the transition from the midtone to the highlight. With the black pencil, I want to darken the eyebrows a bit. Really light pressure here because the hairs aren't that dark here at the beginning. So I'm carefully shading to darken here. And then here you see those eyebrow hairs. Try not to draw all of the lashes next to each other. Skip a few, because some are lighter, some have a gap between them. So I like to blend them a bit, make them look softer. So I'm using really light pressure and just adding a bit. And then I'm going to blend this with the blending stump. So carefully, when you blend other areas that are less dark. Okay, I think I'm going to work on the nose now. Just go over the sketch line everywhere where it's darker. I'm going to add graphite to the middle part here, just because I don't want to go too dark right away. Focus on each step one at a time. So don't think about the end result, and don't think about what you need to draw and how much time it will take. Just focus on the now and on what you're drawing now. And then even if you don't have a lot of time, just say to yourself, okay, I'm just going to work on the nose a little, add a few layers, and then tomorrow or whenever you have time, you can continue with the mouth. And then step by step, you will make it easier for yourself to continue to work on a drawing. Darken the tip here. I don't want it too dark, so that's why I'm using the 4B. You can also use the 6B, but adding another layer of the 4B can help. So that's why I like to layer and add multiple layers and then blend in between. That's my technique. Layering and blending in between each layer will give you smooth transitions. And then I also shade around the nose, like the skin around the nose. And now with the 8B, this shadow can be darker. Keep on using light pressure. If the 8B is not dark enough, then you can move on to the next. So just like with the eyes, try not to keep on focusing the whole time. Step away, come back, and if you think, okay, I am not sure what else, move on to the next facial feature. I'm going to use the 4B graphite pencil and then start working on the mouth. And then here on the lower lip, starting in the middle, see this curve, and then you see a few parts that are lighter, and then some crease lines. So if you lose those highlights on the lower lip, you can also use the white marker for that. I'm going to try to shade around that, because I'm going to use the blending stump to blend. With the 6B, the lips aren't too dark, so I think just here in this corner I can use the black later, but the rest, the value, it's not all that dark. Or yeah, maybe if I compare it, I might darken later, but now it looks dark enough. So. And then remember here, I just drew an outline, but you want this line to blend in with the value of the cheek here. You want to make it blend in to create the same value here on the cheek here. But I'm pretty sure that once I start adding the dark background, I might need to go back to darken a few areas. And then when you have more of the drawing, then you can step back and then look at the whole drawing, the whole face, and compare it to the reference photo. And when I go over the highlights, I pay attention that I take a clean part, because if you keep on smudging with graphite on the tissue, then you might darken the highlights too much. Now that I added the value on the face and the cheeks, now that the mouth looks too light. You see that? It looks the same value. Look at the reference photo, you see that the lips are just a bit darker value. So I have the 8B, and I'm going to darken a bit. And then here towards the middle of the mouth, it's a bit darker. And for this corner with the black pencil, because again it's a bit darker. then here I'm using really light pressure, but just darken it a bit more where the 8B isn't dark enough with the stump, because these are smaller. If I use the soft tissue, then it just all becomes one value. So with the blending stump, you can carefully just go like over the areas you want to blend. And then like a shadow here, because the lips are sticking out a bit. So here you see a shadow from the inside of the shirt. And then to the 6B. Here you can see that the jawline is just a bit darker than the neckline. So here I'm going to use the 8B because I'm starting to lose the line of the jaw when I'm adding shadow here on the neck. So before I lose this line of the chin and the jawline, I'm going to darken. And you don't want to outline. And it looks like the 8B isn't even dark enough, so maybe I can use the charcoal like I did here. And so yeah, you can go from patchy to really smooth, really fast with the blending stump. So not too light, but just making sure that I can see the difference of the chin and the neck, because it all got like one value. With the 8B, darken the shirt here. Actually, I'm going to use the charcoal. I want to darken this part. Normally I use the black for this, but I actually discovered that the charcoal can go over this really easily. At first I didn't think that charcoal and graphite would go well together, but as long as you use light pressure. This is the 2B charcoal pencil, and you can also blend it really easily with the blending stump. And with the 8B I see like shadow here from the shirt. I think I'm going to blend the shirt later, see how that looks with the background. I'm just using the charcoal that I have on the stump and just spreading it around, and then going in circular motion. Here I see some texture of the hair, but I can also add that with the black pencil, create that texture of the hair. I'm adding the charcoal a bit, but now I'm discovering that you can easily use charcoal, pan pastel, so you can just combine it all to create this, to create a beautiful background. And the neck, so that I don't lose it, that it all gets like blended in with the background, so that I don't get it too dark. Add a bit more and then blend with the other side. You know, it's a bit patchy here, so I'm going to use soft tissue to smoothen that, because this is the face, so you want the skin to be smoother. And I already see that I can darken a few areas here. So again, it can get a bit patchy when you smudge with the blending stump. But then I just use the soft tissue to smooth further. The black pencil. Add those hairs. You can be really precise with this pencil, more precise than the charcoal. So I think I'm going to use this for the texture in the hair as well. The shadow here around the nose. 8B, because I want to have more control when I create this line here on the chin. Okay, not sure if this part is too dark, but I'm going to check later once I have more finished. So I'm using really light pressure where I need to shade. So keep on looking back at the reference photo to see, look at the shape of the shadow. Once you darken more and more, then you look back at the highlight, and here I see actually this one pretty light. So now I'm just taking the graphite that's on the stump and it's adding just a touch, making the highlight less bright. And I could also use the sponge, just like I did here, but yeah, I just want to be more careful that I don't darken it too much. And I still need to add those beautiful bright highlights in the eye, but I'm going to do that in the last step. Same for the lips here. Like adding those final details can sometimes really make a difference. Before I add the background on this side, I'm going to use the black pencil and start to draw that hair texture. And then here you see some going over the forehead. So I'm just using the black pencil for that, because if I use the sponge, I have less control. And here in between the eyebrows, I notice that it can also be just a bit darker. If you notice like the mid-tone or a highlight somewhere is too light, just add a bit of just add a light layer of graphite, blend, and then compare. Make the hair look a bit softer, not like you have all of these lines. So I always like to blend over each layer with hair as well. And I'm also going to make a picture of my drawing, because I think that's easier to check values that way. Here the hair blends a bit in with the background. So I'm defining the edge a bit more, and I have more control with the pencil than with the sponge. Like define the edge of the ear, but make sure you don't have an outline around the ear. So I'm going to use the stump, and I'm going to create some shadow on it, some folds. Make this part of the shirt a bit darker because it's the same for the face. Okay, so I think next I'm going to add the highlights, the brightest highlights to the eyes. So I can say that I have learned a few things with this drawing, adding a background and working with charcoal and pan pastel. I noticed that once I smudge over with the pan pastel, it can get a bit lighter. Also what you use, if you smudge over it with the sponge, you can lighten. So now I'm trying to go over it again and darken some more. So you see that the table isn't getting too dirty. So the pan pastel doesn't have as much dust as charcoal. Okay, so when you take a picture of your drawing, you can look back at it, maybe on your phone, on your tablet, on your computer, and compare values that way with the reference photo next to it. Just look back and forth. Just want to blend this area just a bit. Make sure I have a smooth transition here. Make sure that you're satisfied with the values.